They find the documents, they report it immediately. A far different situation than Donald Trump's. Anybody who says it's not is a political hack. It's very clear. It's very clear to see politically and legally that there is a huge difference in the two cases.
As you say, I think most people at home say both guys have documents that they shouldn't have, even though one, as of now, has hundreds more. You don't think the difference in Biden seeming to cooperate and the lawyers turning it over and Trump not cooperating for months and having to have a warrant or what have you, you don't think that that makes a difference to folks at home?
That's just some of the liberal media reaction to Joe Biden's classified documents scandal. Over the weekend, the White House counsel announced finding yet another set of documents in Mr. Biden's house. For some odd reason, Mr. Biden's lawyers, who don't have security clearances, were searching for the classified documents. You might remember this comes after Thursday's White House press briefing, where Karine Jean-Pierre assured the American people that the search was over and they had found all the documents.
As part of the lawyers, they look through the places where documents could have been stored, and the counsel's office released a statement on that. Now it is in the hands of the special counsel.
So we should assume that it has been completed?
You should assume that it's been completed, yes.
And then they found more documents. George Will's here with how Republicans can't manage to capitalize on the scandal. First, Chris Hahn, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. Chris, I don't know why, but I'm hearing in Democrats' voice this hesitancy of giving a full-throated response and full-throated defense of the president because it seems like they just don't know when the next shoe is going to drop.
Or they're just annoyed because they basically gave Trump something he can hold on to and gave the American people something to say a pox on both their houses, even though it's very different. But you and I both know the rule in politics. Number one rule, if you're explaining, you're losing. And you've got to explain to the American people why this is different. And it is almost impossible to do that. So I think most Democrats are like, look, we had the Republicans on the ropes. And now where are we? They've got something to grab onto.
Does this last through the election?
No, God, no.
Oh, come on. Really? This isn't Hillary's email server?
I mean, if this is still going on, when it comes time to pick a candidate for the Democratic Party, Joe Biden will not be the candidate. This is not the kind of thing that's going to last that long. I think that the special prosecutor will come back and say, yeah, there was some mishandling of documents, but there was nothing criminal. And in the case of Donald Trump, I think if Donald Trump would have just turned him over, nobody would have cared.
This is what I don't understand, though, is Joe Biden is the president of the United States. He's got his chief of staff, Ron Klain. You've got the White House counsel's office. Back in September, when the Trump document thing began, why did they not say to the American people, hey, look, we're doing a double check. We're going to search everywhere, make sure there's no documents. And then when it came out, alert everybody, not just the National Archives, and tell everybody else to keep it quiet. And then President Biden in Mexico, the most transparent administration there is, saying this when he was trying to explain the first batch of documents.
I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents they were.
He's the president of the United States, but nobody sees it. Doesn't he deserve better advice and counsel?
Of course he does. And of course they didn't want to tell people about this before the election. We all remember what happened to Hillary with the Comey letter. We know that the press would have used it as a, oh, look, the same as both. And it would have been a major story going into the midterms. And it might have swayed enough voters in some of these close races to vote Republican. So, yeah, I think, look, the problem you have right now is you have the president's personal lawyers, you have the White House counsel, you have the political operation, and now you have the special counsel. And they are all at odds with each other. They all have different goals and different reasons to get things done. So this could go on for quite some time until it's all settled by the special prosecutor.
Just from a political standpoint, it seems pretty clear, right, that you can't indict Donald Trump and not indict Joe Biden. That is going to be very difficult for Merrick Garland to figure out how to do.
Well, Merrick Garland turned it over to two separate special prosecutors.
Oh, come on. You know
should be
he's
looking
still in
at this
charge.
independently. Well, yeah, I get it, but they should be looking at it independently. And look, I don't think Donald Trump is going to be prosecuted for just having the documents. Obstruction of justice, though, on the other hand, might be something he is charged with because he was asked time and time again and subpoenaed for those documents and did not return them. It is a very different situation with Biden. But politically, that doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, and this gets back to the optics question. It's never the crime, but the cover-up. I go back to this. This is an administration that was not candid even after the election about this. And even when caught on it, President Biden talked about one set of documents, and he knew there was at least another one. This is a press secretary who says, oh, the searches are all over, and yet there was a search going on that night where they found more documents. How long do you believe that it's incompetence?
I believe it is somewhat multiple people telling multiple tales and not coordinating with each other. I don't blame the press secretary. She's just saying what they told her to say. She was told that the search was over. She's not doing the search.
Chris, but fair's fair, though. You would not give Team Trump or any Republican this kind of leeway, really?
Of course not. I'm a partisan. But that's the way it works, my man. This is a part of, look, you saw it on the Sunday shows all weekend. Republicans going out there saying this is the worst thing that ever happened.
Pathetic.
But they don't want to investigate Trump for the same exact thing.
Yeah, no, it was
it's
pathetic.
nonsense. And one more thing. We classify way too many things in this country.
Yeah. We said that
we
the night it broke.
Stop.
We said that the
absolutely.
night you preach. You said that the night it broke. Thanks, Chris. We'll see you soon. Chris might agree that Republicans, as he said, can't get out of their own way on this. Here's just some of the highlights from this weekend.
We still don't know what type of documents President Trump had. That's one of the questions we've asked National Archives. Just because Joe Biden's lawyers said they turned over 5 documents doesn't mean they just turned over 5 documents. They could have turned over 500 documents.
It's this double standard. It's, Clinton mishandles classified information, and they get Biden mishandles classified information, they get treated a certain way. And then, of course, President Trump gets his home raided 91 days before this midterm election.
Vice President Harris hasn't necessarily shown her level of competence as borders are. Has anyone checked to see if she has any classified material sitting on her kitchen table?
That was my particular favorite, the Republican congressman who suggested Kamala Harris had classified documents at her house. Her house is called the Naval Observatory. She is the vice president of the United States. She gets access to everything, just like Mike Pence did. George Will is with us, senior NewsNation contributor and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist. How is it that the dumbest among Republicans are the ones that always decide to go on the Sunday shows?
Well, they live for that, Leland. There are a whole bunch of members of Congress whose idea of multitasking is to tweet while sprinting to the Fox News green room. This is what they do. They don't legislate. This whole document episode really has reached the point of some hilarity with the Biden justifier saying, well, gosh, in the hurly-burly of the final days, anything could happen. And besides, they're safe because they're with his Corvette. Now, the country watching this, what are they thinking out there?
What I guess that may be the most important question is that what is the country thinking about this? If you're extreme left, your mind's not going to be changed. If you're extreme right, your mind's not going to be changed. In the middle, is Donald Trump the big winner here, as much as that would pain you to admit?
I think he is the big winner, and he's a big winner in a way that makes the country the winner. What I mean is this. The worst thing we could do is indict Donald Trump, recipient of 74 million votes, likely, perhaps front runner at this point for the Republican nomination. You do that and you make this entire political year entirely about Donald Trump and his legal troubles. Now, I think the Biden administration wanted that, which is why to them it's a huge setback when Mr. Biden's troubles neutralize this and make it all an unintelligible muddle to the average citizen who has better things to do than to try and split the differences between these two episodes.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are differences, although the more the Biden administration sort of bumbles through this, even Democrats keep saying it becomes harder and harder to defend it. You've covered a lot of scandals in Washington, both Republican and Democrat. How is it that after all this time, President Biden was not surrounded by people smart enough to tell him to get out in front of, if there were classified documents, because they thought they could hammer Donald Trump, and if there were, to not handle it better than they have?
It's an old story, Leland. What we learn from history is that we never learn from history. The simple truth of the matter is this: Donald Trump's reflexive, normal, self-defeating truculence makes him, in this episode, look more guilty than he probably is. And Joe Biden's normal, unavoidable befuddlement might make him look more innocent than he is. But guilty of what? Innocent of what? If this all comes down to the mishandling of documents under a statute having to do with the archives, the country is going to shrug and move on.
Forgive me, truculence?
That's exactly what Mr. Trump brings to every controversy, is a kind of smash mouth politics. And if he had responded in a much more measured way, measured is not something you normally associate with Mr. Trump, when this whole document episode came up, this would have disappeared long ago.
Last question for you. How is it, you say that sort of Biden's befuddlements and the OG whiz and they're next to my Corvette that's locked in the garage and on and on and on, may make him appear more innocent. At the same time, this White House cannot get their story straight. For the most transparent White House that was supposed to ever exist, how is that possible? And if you're Joe Biden, and if you're Jill Biden, who's advising him, how has somebody not gotten fired already?
A lot of people in Washington just aren't very good at their jobs. Let me tell you a little bit quick baseball story, Leland. 1962, the New York Mets, an expansion team composed of other teams' rejects, are on the way to losing 120 games. In the middle of this awful season, Casey Stengel looked down the bench at these ragtag players he had and said, "Can't anyone here play this game?" I think that's the question in Washington right now.
Yeah, and it would be worth our time to point out that people who can play the game don't want to, just because of how toxic things have become. Good news, though, 28 days till your favorite words in the English language, pitchers and catchers report.
I live for the moment.
We'll see you soon, sir. Thank you. CNN's